I had a couple of comments from two different people about my last video on the American paratrooper saying how some of the items are wrong. One chap said that a paratrooper with an M1 carbine wouldn't have a 10-pouch ammunition belt, and it didn't make sense. But I've based my uniform on this picture. This is from a book, and it's an illustration by Malcolm McGregor and Pierre Turner, and they always do their drawings from original photographs. And I did have a book of the actual photograph of that particular person. You can see on there he's got the 10-pouch ammunition belt. And another chap said that the American paratroopers on D-Day would have reinforced patches on their knees and the elbows, and the uniform I had wouldn't be right. Well, this photograph, you just about make out Eisenhower there. It's on the fold of the book, and this picture was taken on the day before D-Day, and none of those soldiers on there have reinforced knee pads or elbow pads. Like, so, same with anything. My video, it's just an overview, but what soldiers should be wearing and what they actually wear and were issued with it are completely different. So those comments are not relevant, really. At the start of the war, the American tank troops would wear these special boots with an unusual wraparound strap system. Then they would wear a one-piece green overalls, and at the bottom of the overalls, a little strap there and a button that was to stop the bottom of the trousers flapping about and getting snagged into the parts of the tank. These are the boots that the US tank crew wore at the beginning of the war. They're what's known as Patton boots. They were named after the then Captain George S. Patton after the First World War. They have this unusual strap system around them. There's a short strap there, across the front, lower down. Then there's another strap, it starts there, goes round the back through that loop, all the way round, then round again to the front, strap to the pad. Now there wasn't many of those made. They don't think they lasted very long. They started using just ordinary boots, like the ordinary infantry. So those kind of boots like that, they're extremely rare at the moment. This is the one-piece overall. There are two large pockets on the front there, with flaps over. Now the belt, that's actually attached to the overalls, and then there's a large pocket on the seat round the back, and then they have a large pocket on the chest there as well. And this is the one-piece suit, and in one of there's two pockets there, one on either side on the leg, but in this one here there's a label here, and this one says, let's have a look, I'm getting it out properly, read it for you, let's get it in position. It's suits one-piece herringbone twill special, stock number size 34R, and it's dated 1943. On top of the overalls, they would wear this short jacket, windproof jacket with a zip down the front and two slant pockets at the side there, and the elasticated cuffs. Very popular jacket that was, and that star went on after the war as a civilian jacket. Then they would mostly be armed with a pistol, usually a Colt M1911. They came out in the First World War, and then there was a later model called the M1911A1 that came out in 1926, but both would be used throughout the war. And that's in its leather holster. That's a semi-automatic, and then that pouch there attached to the belt. That's for two more magazines for the pistol. The fibre helmet was designed to take the M1 steel helmet shell on top for extra protection in the tank, but you very rarely see photographs of the tank troops wearing the steel helmet shell on top. Now that cross strap at the back and that other little strap there at the side, that's to hold the goggles into place, and then on the air flaps there's some that's past the microphone set so they can hear what they can hear each other in the noisy tank. Now this helmet and uniform was made famous a few years ago in the Brad Pitt film called Fury, but it made me laugh. There's a scene in there, it was really funny. Brad Pitt had been driving his tank for hours and he got out and he took his helmet off and his hair was still spiky. That would be impossible. His hair would be stuck to his head with sweat, but that's Hollywood for you. The main tank of the Americans was the Sherman medium tank. That first came out in 1941, but there were several variants of that made during the war. They did alter it quite a lot, and that went into production until 1945, and there was around 50,000 of those were made during the war, and nearly 17,000 of those were supplied to the British Army. And it was really reliable, and it was used in Korea as well. And also in 2016, Paraguay still had 10 active tanks used for training. Then they had 5 in storage for parades, and they were only retired in 2018. The British tank troops were issued with a revolver. This is the Webley 38. It was in the beginning of the war. It was in a low slung holster like that. It was supposed to make it more convenient for being in the tank and not getting snagged on the components in the confines of the tank, but it didn't work out very well. Later on in the war, they just cut those long straps off and fastened the holster to the belt. And this one's dated 1942. And it's got a cleaning rod attached to the holster there as well, and some loops on the side for some spare ammunition. This is the one-piece winter tank suit. It's really thick and heavy. It has 2 zips. Go from the neck right down to the ankles. That's so it can get in and out easier, and there's pockets in it all over, and it has a detachable hood as well. And it was known by the men as a pixie suit, and they did have a lightweight version for the Far East as well. Now the microphone, I'm not sure whether that's the correct one for the tank troops, but it is wartime dated. And also during the war, the tank troops started wearing black berets, and even today, the tank regiments, they still use black berets as part of their uniform. There's a button on the microphone there. That's when you press that, that's the press to speak into it and switch it off. Like I say, I'm not sure whether it's for the tank troops or not, but it is a wartime dated one. The badge on the beret is for the Royal Tank Regiment, and the motto is Fear Naught. The tank regiment was formed during the First World War, and it's one of the oldest tank regiments in the world. Tanks first came out in the First World War, and this is a British prototype. It's called Little Willie, came out in 1915, and it's steered by the 2 wheels at the back. They're controlled by cables that run from the wheels into the tank. And I think that's how the tank gets its name. It's basically just a metal tank on tracks. Now that wasn't developed as a fighting vehicle, that was just like trying to get, to find out a method of getting over trenches. But that was the forerunner of all tanks. All tanks came from that one design. After the disaster of Dieppe early in the war, when the tanks couldn't get ashore to support the troops, Churchill ordered Major General Percy Hobart to come up with some different ideas for the tanks. And one of the things he came up with was this was the DD tank, or the duplex drive. It's based on a Sherman tank, That hood there lifts up to make it waterproof, and the idea was they could be launched from landing craft just offshore, then swim the short distance to shore. Then when they get on land, that hood would drop down and could be used as a tank. Now the Americans did use some of those on Omaha Beach, but the sea was a bit choppy on that day, and the tanks were set off a bit too far from shore, and a lot of them sank. And this was another one he came up with. This is based on a Churchill tank. It's called a Crocodile. It's a flamethrower. The tray at the back there is full of the liquid for the flamethrower. And all these tanks became known as Hobart's funnies. That one there, that's based on a Sherman. It's called a Crab. Those chains there on the shaft there, they spin around at high speed. You can see it there, and that clears away through the minefield. It sets off all the mines. Then the one down below, that's based on a Churchill. That's the Churchill Avery. That used to fire a 40-round projectile known as a bunker buster, and the round was known as a flying dustbin because of the shape of the round that it fired. Then you've got another one, another Churchill. That's just for towing in broken down vehicles. Then we've got another one, that's called the bobbin. That used to roll out its own little road, you know, for coming landing on the soft sand on the beaches. And then there's this one, that one there, that's the Ark, known as the Ark. It's just a Churchill tank with no turret on, and it was used like a sacrificial thing to just go into steep crossing ravines or large trenches. And there's another one there that can lay its own bridge. But they proved to be very effective on D-Day, and the Americans were offered some of these, but they only took up the DD tank. They didn't accept any of the others. And after the war, Eisenhower did say that he did regret it because they were a big benefit in the landings on D-Day.